What's up, gang? We are back. Andrew Cooper here, aka Coupe Fiasco on Twitter. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco, and week one is in the books, baby. Hope you guys had as much fun yesterday as I did, man. I was literally just walking around my house, clapping, going wild by myself. I hang out with the gang, with friends, but for week one, I just wanted to take it all in. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully your fantasy teams smashed. But here's the thing about week one and football in general is that you can't really watch all the games. You can't, you're not a spider. You know what I mean? You can't have 8 eyes on 8 games. And a lot of times you can't, even when the Octobox is up, it's hard to follow all the action. So what I'm doing today is I'm just going through and I'm breaking down what I saw, what we didn't see, and what the numbers behind the scenes are going to help us out with. And I just want to give a shout out up front to a few guys that do a lot of the analytic work and pull a lot of the numbers that help us out, right? There's no reason for us to do this all by ourselves. So shout out Kevin Tompkins from Fantasy Alarm. Shout out Dave Wright, who puts together a ton of awesome snap stuff. He's at FF Spaceman on Twitter. And also guys like Pro Football Focus, Player Profiler, that pull a lot of numbers for us so that we can go through and make sure what we saw and what the box score showed matches up with the usage. Because that's the biggest thing here. There are so many misconceptions and so many issues with game script, everything like that, that will throw us for a loop. For instance, in a week one setting, you might have one team that runs 55 snaps when the average is like 65, and you have other teams running 80 based on the game script, right? There were a couple teams this week that played 80 offensive snaps, and you're not going to play 80 snaps every week. So you have to keep that in mind. Shout out Jack. Shout out people popping in the chat. What's happening today is going to be more of a just by the books, going through everything, hitting all the numbers. On Friday, we'll get back to, taking a lot of questions, a lot of start sits. We'll have a guest on, the whole deal. It'll be a lot more intuitive, a lot more teamwork on that one. But on this one, I just want to go through and hit these teams and tell you what matters and what doesn't. Because I'll tell you what, there's a lot that doesn't matter that is going to cause people to make the wrong moves on waivers. So let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. And I'll tell you the one thing that jumped out for me for this team, and it honestly shouldn't be a surprise to any of us, is that Zach Ertz tied for the team lead in routes with 32, and he got 10 targets. I mean, he caught 6 of them. He only had 21 yards, but that's always who Zach Ertz has been. Like, even Zach Ertz on the Eagles, he had so many seasons with 110, 120 targets, and he didn't crack 1,000 yards. He needed 150 targets in that season to crack 1,000. He only has one season with 1,000 yards. If I had asked you that, you probably would have said he has multiple, but no, just one. And this is a guy that he might not be super sexy, he might not be super flashy, but for me, if I just need somebody that I can rely on to not give me a zero, Zach Ertz, after what we saw this week, is likely that guy. If you were holding Trey McBride, you can drop him. Other things from that game that I liked, James Conner, 52 snaps, next best guy, 7. Sometimes you go out here and we think a guy is going to be the bell cow, and there were certainly teams we're going to talk about today where we thought that was the case, and it proved definitely not to be the case. But with this one, James Conner got all the work, man. He was the star here. So that was super exciting. The other one is a guy we were stashing in Dynasty, definitely. And in some of these other leagues, we were taking him in the last round of best balls or holding on to him. And that's Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson came out and had 56 snaps, led the entire team. And the reason we believe that that could be the case is he's built differently than these other wide receivers. And I don't mean that as like he's him, he's built different. I mean, he actually physically is built different than these other players like Marquise Brown, Rondell Moore, Greg Dortch. He has 4 inches and 30 pounds on all those guys. He's just much bigger. He's a true prototypical split end. And that's why he played a massive snap share, ran 32 routes. He only got 4 targets, but it's the underlying stuff that matters most to me. So Michael Wilson, definitely on my radar as a guy to add. Rondell Moore is the guy who played the partial snap share. When they went 2 wide receiver sets, it was Michael Wilson on one side, Marquise Brown on the other side. Rondell Moore came out of the game. That makes a lot of sense because Rondell Moore, not very big. I mean, if you're going to go with a jumbo set, go with a running situation, then I don't know if we want to have Rondell Moore out there for the full snap share. Young Star C in the chat, man. What's up, Better Boss? How we doing, guys? Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, with the Cardinals, I'm liking Marquise Brown. I'm liking Michael Wilson, even though they didn't go crazy with targets. They're playing the full snaps. Rondell Moore, not a guy you necessarily need to hold, honestly, from what I saw. Zach Ertz is a potential add, and obviously James Conner's the dude. So that's my takeaway from the Cardinals. And this is a team that played about an average number of snaps, 62. So you don't have to add or take away, discount anything you saw. I mean, like last year, for instance, here's an example of why it matters how many snaps the team played. Look at the Jets at the beginning of last year with Joe Flacco. And this team was playing 80 in the overtime games. They were playing like 100 snaps, and Flacco was throwing a million times. And it made it look like Tyler Conklin was going to be a thing. Made it look like some of these guys were going to, continue this all season, until you realize that 80 snaps a game is not sustainable. So a team that plays 80 snaps this week, next week, if they play 50, you're going to sit there scratching your head. Why were these guys so good last week? Why did they suck this week? More plays, more production. That's the deal almost all the time, man. So that's what's going on here. Dustin, I see you in the chat saying Koopa Loop thought your Pats were going to pull it out last night. Man, I got hopeful enough to wear the sweatshirt today. I thought they looked good at certain times, terrible at other times. The decision, it's like where we used to have the confidence to just go for it, 4th and 3 or 4th and 4. If you have Tom Brady, you feel good about it. With this team, they're punting, or going for it on 4th and 17. You thought there was no shot, and honestly, there wasn't. Whereas if you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, there's always a chance. Or if you have a guy like Tom Brady, there's obviously always a chance. Patrick Mahomes, you feel good about it. They just don't have that right now. But hey, promising to say the least that they almost took off a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. So pretty solid stuff. All right, next team, Atlanta Falcons. I'm just going to go in order based on city, just so we're looking at the team themselves. We're not getting too caught up. Like, obviously, we're going to hit on where the matchup mattered, where it didn't. But going to go through each team. I'm going to try to hit on every single one. So bear with me here. So this is an example of a team that played a below average number of snaps, way below average. But they're probably going to be a slow offense in general. So don't expect them to have a ton of crazy games. They probably will average below the league average is about 65 or so snaps, right? So this team played 51. That's way below average, but I think they kind of want it to be slow. So you don't have to tack too much on, but this team realistically is going to need to throw more when they're not playing the Panthers. They're going to need to do a lot more, right? So you're not just going to see what we saw, but to a certain degree, it's probably a microcosm of what it's going to be. So I think these running backs, the easiest way to dissect it is that it looked a lot like what we would see out of like Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, where Bijan is Aaron Jones. He's the most athletic back. He's the starter. He's the guy they're going to like in 2-minute drill. He's the guy they're going to like in crunch time situations. And he's the dude, but they also have an AJ Dillon. They have Tyler Algier, who, if you have 1 yard and you need to get it, he's the guy. Goal line, clearly, yesterday, he was the guy. So it's just annoying enough to maybe not allow our guy to be the RB1 overall. But I mean, Bijan might just be so good that eventually they just say whatever. And these guys can both get enough carries where they could both be potentially fantasy relevant. But right now, that's what the split looks like. It looks like it skews a little bit Bijan passing, skews a little AJ Dillon running. That's probably what we're going to see. From Kyle Pitts, same old thing. It's the same old thing it's been, where technically he's running the routes, right? Ran 20 routes, which tied Drake London, led the team, second most of any player on the team. His ADOT was good. His air yards obviously were high, but there just weren't, there wasn't enough passing. There wasn't enough volume. So until this team throws more, we're going to have to move him down the weekly rankings. We had him decently high today on the idea that maybe this team was just going to be better all around and throw more and do everything more. And Bijan would be the rising tide that lifts all ships, but not really the case, man. Kyle Pitts just kind of chilling once again. So, if this team does get in a shootout where they throw 40, 50 times, those numbers would all go up for him. But as of right now, doesn't look like they, this week, they definitely didn't do that. So you're going to have to deal with that week to week. And honestly, I'm not going after Mac Hollins, anybody else. Nobody. So Drake London played 46 snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. Mac Hollins was second highest at 32. So I'm not chasing anyone else. That's it. There's 4 guys on this team you have to think about: Bijan, Algier, Drake London, Pitts, and it's going to be game script dependent. Next team, Baltimore Ravens. Big news: J.K. Dobbins out for the season. Achilles, man, sucks for a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy. Now we're going to see him miss another full season. Just terrible luck, man. Terrible luck. Unless they add somebody. I mean, Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt are all floating around out there. They also had Melvin Gordon on the roster in the preseason. Could bring him back. We'll have to see. But for now, just picture it probably will be what you think it is. Gus Edwards as the plotter. Justice Hill as a better guy in space, better at catching the football. And he even scored the touchdowns yesterday. So Justice Hill is the guy you're going to want to go after over Gus Edwards, though obviously Lamar Jackson takes a bit for himself there. That takes someone off the top. And, we got to think about whether they sign somebody or not. This team ran 64 snaps this week, so right in the middle. Don't have to worry about adjusting for that script. Rashad Bateman was actually quietly the big time odd man out. Dustin says in the chat they already activated Melvin Gordon. So there you go. Maybe that will stop them from signing a Leonard Fournette or a Kareem Hunt. So yeah, probably still Justice Hill. I don't think they would just take if Melvin was going to be highly involved, they probably would have just kept him on the roster instead of Gus Edwards or Justice Hill. So I don't think Melvin just comes out of nowhere to be the lead back. I mean, I've seen crazier things, but probably not the case. Rashad Bateman was the odd man out in terms of snaps. He only played 25 snaps. He's been dealing with a foot injury, but for now, Rashad Bateman, you can't really start the guy. And Jack sends, and you say it in the chat, 100%. We all saw it. Zay Flowers is the man. He should be on waivers in no leagues. I know in most leagues he was drafted. So congratulations if you listen to John Impemba, and me and Howard Bender were following his lead on that. But Impemba, our editor, was all over Flowers. I took him in a bunch of places. Luckily we told a bunch of people to start him this week in the Discord and in our discussion. So got to be feeling pretty good about that. But Zay Flowers was the man, and Odell Beckham actually led the team in snaps with 59. So our heart says that we want Bateman to play more, but until he does, if you want to take a shot on anybody else from this squad, it's got to be Odell over Bateman. So that's where we're at. Isaiah Likely only ran 23 routes. Odell led with 30. And we just have to hope that Mark Andrews, his role in this offense is better than what Likely's was. It's a brand new offense. Todd Monken's offense coming to town. He was able to utilize Brock Bowers at Georgia to make him the best tight end in football, even as a sophomore, right? So we definitely are interested in what that looks like. And I think that Mark Andrews is going to be used a little different than Likely, but it was definitely disheartening to see Isaiah Likely not super featured, not a huge part of the offense there. So disappointing from Likely, but we were taking a stab on him, starting him with the hopes that he would do what he did last year when Mark Andrews was out, which was get 8 targets a game, but didn't happen. So Isaiah Likely on the back burner until Mark Andrews comes back. But that's kind of it from that squad. Lamar Jackson looked a little rough, but luckily it's the Texans. And this team has a history of playing down to their opponents. So whatever. Buffalo Bills play tonight. Don't worry about them. Carolina Panthers ran 71 snaps, not too over the norm. It's nothing too crazy, nothing to over correct for. But the rest of it looked like we thought. They went out and used 3 wide receiver sets. The real question is this. So you've got 3 wide receiver sets with Thielen, Marshall, and Mingo. And I'm telling you, when I say 3 wide receiver sets, the guy that played the least was Mingo. He played 67 of 71 snaps. So they went full 11 personnel. In fact, Laviska Shenault played 25 snaps. So they were using even 4 wide receiver snaps a ton, but it was 3 guys, wheels up. My question is, what happens when DJ Chark comes back? Is Chark now the odd man out, or does Chark come in and Terrace Marshall plays less, or does the rookie Jonathan Mingo play less, or does maybe they rest Adam Thielen a little bit because he's an older guy? That's a real question, and it's a big question mark going into this week. Hayden Hurst split with Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas. So Hayden Hurst, we feel good about the targets. He got 7, led the team, but he actually only played 41 of 71 snaps, and he only ran 27 routes. Guys like Terrace Marshall ran 40, so it's not fully wheels up for Hayden Hurst right now. Though it's promising, obviously, that he played more pass snaps than every other tight end. The other guys don't really do a whole lot. Yeah, Dustin, good point in the chat. Chark might be washed. Albert, what's up, brother? Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. Miles Sanders, right, on paper, he got more carries, he ran more routes, got more targets. Chuba Hubbard was clearly involved, though. I mean, when you look at it on paper, Miles Sanders playing 44 snaps, 21 routes to 13 for Hubbard, 4 targets to 2, 18 carries to 9. And some sites had Miles Sanders even at 6 targets. PFF had him at 4 because they kind of discount some of, sometimes the quarterback throws it right at the guy's feet, and it's clearly just trying to get away with grounding, and not a real target. So I trust PFF's number of 4. It's nice that Miles Sanders on paper played more than in every other situation, but Hubbard, he looked pretty decent. So that's a little bit of a thorn in our situation. But the one big thing here that matters most to me, especially, because all my leagues are PPR. I don't play a lot of standard leagues. Is that Miles Sanders was the back in 2-minute drill. We've talked about this on the show a million times. You, with the 2-minute drill, as long as your guy is the guy, that means he gets pretty much all those snaps because there's really no time to substitute, no time to rotate. And the guy needs to know all the plays. That was a concern coming in, is that Hubbard's been there and Sanders hasn't. But the guy needs to know all the plays, needs to know all the audibles, needs to know all the pass block situations, right? The schemes, because you call multiple plays in the huddle, you're calling plays at the line, and you need to be able to pick up pass block. So if Miles Sanders has that job, I'm still starting him wherever, because best team's probably going to be in a lot of situations like that, and that's a lot of snaps. That's what kept guys like Najee Harris alive last year. It's huge. So as long as Sanders has that role, I'm in. So I'm still in on Sanders. Hayden Hurst, I just wish he played the whole game and ran all the routes. I mean, it's nice that he got the targets, but it's just hard to predict him to consistently do that week to week. And again, this team played it's not 71, 77 snaps. So that's probably coming down. They're probably again, that's 10 to 12 more snaps than the average team plays. So probably not realistic for them to keep rolling like that. The Bears this week, they came out, played 74 snaps, so above average there. DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney are clearly the top two guys. Chase Claypool played in the slot, and man, Claypool on his one target tips it and gets it picked off. Attaboy, Chase. I mean, it wasn't the best throw, but good Lord, dude. Come on, Chase. Let's get it together. Three-way split at running back is what I saw. Not sure anyone felt differently about it. I'd love to hear in the chat if there's a guy that you preferred over the other, but 29 snaps for Roschon, 27 for Khalil Herbert, 21 for Donta Foreman. More routes run for Roschon, and oddly, Donta Foreman. Donta Foreman ran more routes than Khalil Herbert, and Foreman is just not a pass catcher. I don't know why they would utilize him like that. 7 targets for Roschon, 4 for Herbert, 3 for Foreman, but Khalil Herbert got the most carries. So looks like Herbert's a starting back. The other guys are pass catching backs. That hurts bad for Herbert, because when you have a quarterback that already doesn't throw much to running backs in general, this week they did a ton, but usually they don't much because he's a mobile QB, and he's also taking those goal line carries himself. Justin Fields is. That's not great for Khalil Herbert. So I left walking away from that game not super amped on Khalil Herbert. Not going to lie. Darnell Mooney looks like he's back off the ankle. Yeah, I'm with you, Dustin. I think Roschon is most interesting now just because at least he got the pass work. And, if it's going to be a split three-headed monster, you want to have that guy. But it's just like when you have the mobile QB and a team that was a bottom 3 in passing to the running back last year, it just caps the upside of all these guys. If there's any sort of split, I'm really not interested. I didn't really have many of these guys going in. The one real bright spot here is Cole Kmet. Played 72 of 74 snaps, got 7 targets and a handoff, and he was heavily involved, tied the team lead. So DJ Moore led the team with 46 routes. Kmet ran 46 as well, more than Mooney, more than Claypool. So I was worried whether Kmet would be involved, where he would fit in. Like the usage this week. It's going to depend week to week on what's going on, but he even had a tough matchup with Devondre Campbell. So even going up against Campbell, he looked pretty good. So Kmet, definitely pretty interesting to me. On to the Bengals. What a nightmare that was. They only ran 56 plays, and this is a high-octane offense typically. So pretty rough. T. Higgins, obviously, 0 catches on 8 targets. My God. He's going to be fine. These guys are all going to be fine. The lone bright spot was Joe Mixon. Got the bulk of the carries and targets before the starters got pulled. So, honestly, the way I'm treating this team is teams have bad games. Who cares? I still like this team. I still like these guys. They're going to have better matchups. They're going to have matchups at home versus, going over there. It's going to be better weather. And I'm starting Joe Burrow. I'm starting Chase. I'm starting Higgins, unless my team is like crazy. Then maybe I have someone to start over Higgins. But 8 targets, I'll take that. Who cares if we didn't catch him? Okay, I'll tell you what. He's not going to go out and get 8 targets a week and not catch any of them. He's not going to go out and get 5 and not catch any. If you would give him 8 targets today, he'd probably catch 5 or 6 of them. So give me T. Higgins. I'm going to keep him. And, Tyler Boyd was his normal self. Irv Smith didn't even play all the snaps. Irv Smith was already a problem as the 4th or 5th target on this team. At best, competing with Tyler Boyd for 3rd, and he didn't even play all the snaps or run all the routes. So Irv Smith, to me, I'm just not interested. I never was. So not going there with Irv Smith. The Browns on the other side of the ball, that's the next team alphabetically anyway. 74 snaps, so a little bit more than you would expect normally. But confirm for us, Nick Chubb is the man, dude. Nick Chubb is that dude. with no Kareem Hunt. And people, I can't believe all offseason people were like, oh, or for years now, they were like, oh, if Kareem Hunt was gone, I would love Nick Chubb. And then what happened? Kareem Hunt left and they still hated him. They were just haters all along. But Nick Chubb coming out having 4 targets, that's a big target share compared to the number that they actually threw. The biggest that we've seen from him in like 3 years. So Nick Chubb is the man right now. And per Hayden, shout out Hayden Winks. He actually pointed out that Jerome Ford did play a decent amount. When you look at it on paper, 36 snaps for Chubb, 30 for Jerome Ford. But this was a blowout. And per Hayden Winks, 73% of those touches for Ford came in garbage time. So it's wheels up for Nick Chubb. It's wheels up for Nick Chubb. And in positive game scripts, maybe Jerome Ford is worth a stab. If you think that the Browns are going to come out and crush a team, then you can throw a Jerome Ford in a lineup just to separate yourself from everybody else. And where I'm playing at this year, I'm still doing my other DFS stuff, whatever. But FFPC has this weekly challenge that's super cool. It's like their version of DFS where you go out and you build a lineup. There's no draft, no salary cap, right? No like convoluted rules, any of that. You can get into a 10-team, a 30-team, or 100-team contest, and you pick your players and let them ride for the week. One rule is you can only pick one player from each team. So if you have a team like this where everybody's starting Nick Chubb or everybody's starting Mark Cooper, if you go out and sneak Jerome Ford in there and they blow him out and Jerome Ford is somehow does better than Nick Chubb, then you can differentiate yourself that way, right? The results are determined by the total points from the entry. So you can go out and do it however you want. They have 2 different builds, Classic and Slim. Classic is like huge, where you have 4 flex spots, and then Slim is like a little bit smaller, anywhere from $35 to $200. So go over to myffpc.com, use promo code ALARM, deposit 35 or more, they'll give you $25, and you can get in and jump in those. I'm doing one next week for sure. So you got to find those guys. Got to find those moves that no one else is making, right? Where you can sneak in there. So go over to my FFPC, use promo code ALARM, and try that out. Next team, Cowboys, crazy blowout. They only ran 57 offensive snaps. That's what happens when you have pick sixes. It gives the ball right back to the other team. Block field goals for touchdowns, gives the ball right back. So they used 3 wide receiver sets as we expected. CeeDee Lamb was the top dog, 23 routes. Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks, 19 apiece. Pollard looked awesome, dominated all the snaps. Exactly what you wanted to see if you drafted Pollard at the end of the first or the second round. So Tony Pollard, every week starter. And Jake Ferguson, here's the thing with Ferg Dog. He got the 6 targets, didn't really do much with them. And my concern for him is that they didn't throw much. CeeDee Lamb led with 23 routes. Ferguson only ran 13. And Peyton Hendershot ran 11. And so, put in perspective, CeeDee Lamb played 46 snaps, 23 routes. Ferguson played 41, only ran 13. Did a little bit of pass blocking in there, kind of came out at times for some pass plays. So I worry people are going to be jumping all that, thinking, oh, this is Dalton Schultz now. But with Lamb, Gallup, and Cooks in town, it's not the same situation as it was last year. Last year was injured Gallup coming off an ACL, and it was CeeDee Lamb, and they had no one else. Now they have 3 good wide receivers, and they have a great running back. So I don't trust Ferguson, to be honest, especially if he's going to be splitting to any degree with anyone. If I'm going to trust Ferguson, I need him to play every snap. So as of now, I know people are going to be going out and adding him. I'd rather add Zach Ertz, honestly, or there's a lot of other guys I'd rather add than Jake Ferguson. So don't fall for that trap. Definitely don't spend up, on a guy like Ferguson if you could just get Ertz for cheaper or just as cheap. Next squad here, Denver Broncos, Sutton, heavily featured. We like to see it, dude. Everyone else rotated, though. So we thought Marvin Mims might be the guy, but Marvin Mims only played 17 snaps. That's 17 out of 64. Sutton played 55 out of 64. To put that in perspective, Lil Jordan Humphrey, with the fake little name, even though he's like 6'4", 225, he played 45 of 64 snaps. So Marvin Mims, deep on the back burner. He's a stash only. Obviously, in Dynasty, you hold on to him, but you can't possibly start him right now. And that's good news for Jerry Jeudy, if you ask me. The fact that no one really separated themselves out of, Lil Jordan Humphrey and Brandon Johnson and Marvin Mims and whoever, that is good news for Jerry Jeudy. Hopefully Judy's back and he can just take his spot as the top 2 target there. And then it's Sutton and it's Jeudy, and we don't have to think too much about the rest of it. That makes our lives so much easier. Greg Dulcich left with an injury. I'm not elevating Adam Trotman in 5 targets, whatever, dude. I don't think – maybe if Judy's out, you can use him over on like FFPC on one of those weekly lineups, but nah, I'm not going there. And then with the running backs, split right down the middle. 29 snaps for Javonte, 29 for P. Ryan. You got more Javonte skewed rushing, P. Ryan skewed passing, and that's what it's like for now. The hope here is that you should have to hope that Javonte Williams is Javonte Williams, and he's so good that they just can't keep splitting the information. And yeah, Kev, I agree with you. Kev Tompkins in the chat says, obviously great to see Denver prioritizing Jags like Brandon Johnson and mid Jordan Humphrey over Marvin Mims. I agree, man. If it was up to me, just go with the shiny upside rookies, let them play. Let's see what it is. Brandon Johnson, get out of here with that, dude. Get out of here with that. So hopefully they let the rookies play more, but if not, at least we can sit here and say, all right, it's Judy, it's Sutton. Let's go on with our lives. But yeah, I'm not going for Trotman. Even if Greg Dulcich is out. I mean, Trotman blocks on too many pass plays, and Chris Mannertz obviously is not even close to a question. I don't want to hear anything about him. So that's it for the Broncos. I'm skipping the breaks today. There's just too many teams to hit, and we were going to do breaks, but I'm just going to do some FFPC reads. Earn Dog, that's cool with you, man. No breaks. No breaks today. When there's bye weeks and stuff, maybe we can start doing breaks at that point. So write me a strongly worded letter. Matt, send me an email if you have a problem with us skipping the breaks today, but we're riding right through. Detroit Lions, next team alphabetical. This team's been talked to death, like just talked into the ground. We know what the situation is. We're hoping that Gibbs and Monty end up being 2017 Kamara and Mark Ingram, which basically Mark Ingram was a starter. Monty was the starter. And we're hoping that Gibbs pulls a Kamara and he's so good that he just keeps clawing away snaps. But Monty is still going to be involved, obviously, in the goal line. Like, he's got 25 pounds on Gibbs. There's no reason to run Gibbs in that wall. There's no reason to use one guy when you have two. And they do different things, that's a great part. So we're going to see Monty be Zeke, and Gibbs hopefully will be Tony Pollard. And that will hopefully make both of them viable. Every one of my leagues, you start two running backs at least two, and you have a flex. So in a lot of cases, 12 teams with two running backs and flex, that's like 36 spots for running backs. Both these guys are going to be in lineups every week, and they should be. So you got to be feeling pretty good about that. But if one goes down, now we have a chance to have like the number one RB in all fantasy football. Sam Laporta looked good. We like to see it, but I didn't like the fact that he blocked on 5 pass plays. What are we doing? Why is Sam Laporta? I get you want to have your starting tight end lineup in line from time to time. Why are you having a guy like this block on pass plays? Get rid of those plays. Get those out of the playbook. It's not helping you, right? It's honestly, with a guy like that, you line him up against Chase Young, all you're going to do is get him hurt and get the quarterback hit. Like, have a tackle block those guys. Let Sam Laporta run routes. And that's not just fantasy wishing. That's how you should use a guy like this. If you wanted a blocking tight end, use, clunky Brock Wright. So that's that. Amon-Ra St. Brown is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Josh Reynolds looked like the second best wide receiver if you want to add somebody. But if looking at Marvin Jones, man, he got a lot of usage. He looked pretty old. So that makes me hopeful that when Jameson Williams comes back, he can be a guy. He can be an asset. So I'm stashing Jameson Williams. If he's on the wire anywhere, probably just throw him on a bench spot if I can. Green Bay Packers. Packers played 60 snaps this week, so right around average. That's nice. Romeo Doubs, obviously 2 touchdowns. He tied for the most. Well, actually, the guy that ran the most routes was the tight end, and we'll get to that shortly. But of the wide receivers, you had 20 routes for Doubs, 20 for Jaden Reed, 19 for Dontavian Wicks. Wicks is probably just playing that Christian Watson role as a placeholder. So Wicks will be gone. It'll be Watson, Reed, and Doubs. Reed was the guy that played the slot, but Luke Musgrave, the tight end, ran 23 routes, which led the team. Ran 16 snaps in the slot and out wide, combined at wide receiver. Here's the crazy part. This was a terrible matchup for him. Like, people were starting him, and I was trying to tell them not to, because Eddie Jackson is awesome. And with those seam routes, you run right into Eddie. That's a big problem. So don't love that matchup-wise. But the fact that he even got 4 targets playing in a situation like that, I'm liking Musgrave. I'm definitely throwing him on a bench spot wherever I can and just making sure that I don't let that guy get away, because if he's going to lead this team in routes and lead them in snaps, he played 45 snaps. The highest wide receiver snap total was 37 for Wicks. Jaden Reed played 32. Romeo Doubs played 29. So, yeah, dude, give me Luke Musgrave. And Tucker Kraft, he was the inline tight end, blocking and blocking on pass plays. Perfect. Love that. Josiah DeGuara did a little bit of that too. He ran 23 routes. DeGuara and Kraft combined for almost 30 snaps, over 30 snaps, and they only ran 6 combined. So it's like it's perfect. That's what you want to see. So good news for Musgrave, even though the full production wasn't there. I care way more about the underlying snaps. You look at 2020 Logan Thomas and like how we got that breakout. It was all about usage. He was playing like 100% of the snaps, lining up at wide receiver, lining up at slot. That's exactly how we figured out that guy was going to break out. Through 6 weeks, he was the tight end 26, but he was playing so many snaps, running so many routes. We were just in on him, and he finished like tight end 3. So if this guy, Musgrave, is going to be that heavily involved, grab him. Scoop him up, man, because he's only going to get better as he gets more games under his belt. Houston Texans next, 77 snaps. That is above average by quite a bit. So what we saw here, they're probably going to be getting beat, blown out like this in certain situations. It was actually closer than it should have been with the Ravens, but 77 snaps is above average. So you're going to have to look at guys like Robert Woods and Nico Collins getting double-digit targets. That's not going to happen every week. Now, what I will tell you is this. It's good news that those guys played as many snaps as they did because this team, they like using the fullback. Andrew Beck, coming out, he's basically playing the same rule that you would see from a Kyle Juszczyk or a Alec Ingold on teams that run the same offense. So whoever the top 2 dogs are, that's what we want. Noah Brown played a decent number of snaps, but got to imagine that John Mechie is going to get that gig over Noah Brown. But right now, Robert Wood, Nico Collins is the guy that I'm most interested in because just Robert Woods is a bit older. But 11 targets for Nico Collins, I mean, he shouldn't be sitting on wires at this point. And also Dalton Schultz, even though he only got 4 targets, I'll tell you this, 62 snaps for him, 51 pass plays, and he only blocked on 1 pass play. That was a big concern, was that he might have to stay in and block. He did not. Tegan Quitoriano was the blocking tight end for that team. So Dalton Schultz, usage, promising. Even though chasing targets in week 1, not necessarily the way you want to go. We want to chase the guys that are playing the snaps, getting, lining up at wide receiver as tight ends. So Dalton Schultz, definitely promising for him. Dameon Pierce, here's a bit of a curveball, right? We thought that Devin Singletary was going to be the pass down back. And when he wasn't playing pass down in preseason, Singletary wasn't, everybody turned and said, well, it's got to be wheels up for Pierce. Here was the rug pull. It's because Mike Boone is the pass catching back. Mike Boone went out and played, 25 snaps. Pierce played 36. And even though Pierce got all the carries, Boone got slightly more targets. Now, Pierce is still going to be solid. The fact that he got 3 targets is nice, but just the fact that Mike Boone is there, that's annoying. I wanted it to be Singletary because I drafted Singletary in some best ball leagues. So that, first of all, is annoying for me, but it's annoying for Pierce owners too. We want Pierce to be the guy, but in your deeper leagues, Mike Boone may be worth a stab. In this team's probably gonna be playing from behind a ton. So if they are, and he's the pass catching back, then yeah, you got to go get some Boone. You got to go scoop him up. Colts game, Pittman, as always, played virtually every snap. That's what he does. 69 of 72 snaps. Last year, he led all wide receivers in snap share with near 97%. And I see you guys in the chat, Cameron B, Brad McCoy. We're going to do more on the Friday show is where we're going to do more ad drop, start sits, all that. But I see Cameron saying Flowers locked in a flex, or is my wide receiver 2 over Drake London? Absolutely has to be right now. Drake London, he's the top wide receiver on a team that doesn't throw. So if Zay Flowers is going to be out there in the air raid doing what he's doing, you got to get Flowers in there. And then Brandon McCoy said, is Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, and D-Hop, should I try to get an upgraded wide receiver? I mean, always try to make your team better, but it all depends who you're starting with Cooper Kupp out. I mean, Amari Cooper and D-Hop are fine. Cooper Kupp, though, if you're losing games and can't afford to wait for him, you might have to trade him. And honestly, if people still value him at Cooper Kupp levels, it might be smart to trade him. The fact that he went to Minnesota to get his hamstring looked at, that doesn't feel day-to-day to me, does it? That feels more like, what is going on here? Why does he have to have a specialist across the country looking at his hamstring? And I always wonder with those, like when they fly, obviously they pay for the best accommodations, but when you have a serious injury like that, what do they do on the plane? Do they have you lying down? Obviously, they probably sent him on a private jet considering the money involved in this sport, but always think about how odd that is to be flying across the country with a major injury, but these guys do it all the time. So back to the Colts. Josh Down played slot. They ran a ton of 3 wide receiver sets, but he's the odd man out. Pittman and Pierce played pretty much all the snaps. 69 for Pittman, 66 for Pierce. Josh Downs 57, and the other two guys ran more routes. Josh Downs played a ton of slot though, which is nice. So if they just run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets, which they might have to with the injuries to the tight ends, then we're good to go. We saw Jelani Woods did not play. Drew Ogletree started, but then got hurt. Once he got hurt, Kylan Granson went out there and he ran 34 routes, he had 25 snaps at wide receiver, only 16 in line. So he actually played more wide receiver than he did slot. So for now, if Ogletree's out and Jelani Woods out, Kylan Granson is a guy that I'm sneaky throwing in lineups, right? He got 6 targets here too. So let's say I'm doing the FFPC Weekly Challenge we talked about earlier. If you want to do that with us, go over to my FFPC, use promo code ALARM. You deposit $35, they'll match 25. And basically, it's a weekly challenge, no draft or salary cap, no confusing rules, 10 teams, 30 teams, or 100 teams. And you just pick your players. You don't need a salary cap. You pick whatever guys you want. The rub is that you can only have one guy per team. So while people are out here starting Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman and all these guys, if you start Kylan Granson and he has a 2-touchdown game, now you have the advantage of barely anyone's going to be starting this guy, and they're all going to be starting, the other guys from this team. So you get that advantage, and you get to use a Colt in your lineup so that with your other spots, you can go out and use Justin Jefferson as your Viking, or use Austin Eckler as your Charger, right? You can sneak in there like that. So they have classic rosters, which are huge with like 4 flexes. That's the one I play, or the slim ones if you just want to make smaller lineups. $35 to $200. And again, new users get $25 off, $25 up free when you deposit 35 or more if you use promo code ALARM at myffpc.com. So I just like the different spin on DFS than the whole roster compilation and going through and having to figure out the salary cap and take guys out of your lineup that you like because you need to save $100 for your defense or whatever it is. Like, miss me with that. I'd rather just play this one where I can just start all the guys I want. The one thing that sucks is, honestly, and it kind of sucks if you like the idea of stacking, but for me, like the stacking thing, if you don't hit the right game, then you're just done in DFS. Like if you just didn't have Tyreek Hill and Tua, then you lost because whoever stacked those guys won. So the rest of it didn't matter. And sometimes that happens at 1:00 and it makes the rest of the day boring. So with this, you can't stack. Like you couldn't have Tyreek Hill and Tua in this. So the little more strategy, and it spreads it out a little more to give everyone a little more of a chance without having to just pick one game, which is kind of lame. So check that out, myffpc.com, promo code ALARM, $25 if you deposit 35 or more. That's what they're doing right now. So pretty cool stuff. Jacksonville Jaguars. Big news here is that Christian Kirk basically was the slot wide receiver, and Nathan Yankee over at sorry if I mispronounced it. I'm just not super duper familiar with his work, but I follow him on Twitter. It's pretty awesome stuff. But he said this offseason that Christian Kirk might just be a slot wide receiver and that it would be Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley on the outside. Well, turned out he was right. Christian Kirk only played 43 snaps, only ran 24 routes, whereas Zay Jones played 61, ran 32. Calvin Ridley, 57, ran 34. So those guys were the guys, and the targets reflected that. So kind of rough for Christian Kirk if you were hoping a repeat from last year. Evan Engram, exactly what we thought. Just rock solid, played a ton of snaps, ran a ton of routes, got 5 targets. The problem is with Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, he's kind of the third man there. So he's going to have weeks where he is the target leader or the second, and he's going to have weeks where he's 4th or 5th. That's why we want our guy to be top 2 on the team. 1, for upside purposes, most difference-making tight ends are top 1 or 2 on the team. And 2, weekly consistency. Last year, Zay Jones, when he went up against guys like Sauce Gardner, he would just get completely erased. Same with like Jeff Okudah, erased. Go look at those games for Zay Jones against the Jets and the Lions, and Engram would thrive in those games. And then conversely, when Engram would go up against somebody like Matt Milano or Kyle Duggar or some of these tight end killers, then Zay Jones would eat. And that's the problem, is that now you don't have a guy you can start every week. You have a situation where you're playing matchups. And that means you have to have 2 tight ends or, extra wide receivers that aren't Zay Jones. So we just want our guys to be the every down studs and to be locked in top 2 targets, focal points of the offense. So Evan Engram, still a guy you're going to start in the right spots, but I'll do my best to warn you, right? Like this week, if you looked at the tight end DFS article, it said right in there, do not start Dallas Goedert. don't start him. And we'll talk about the Eagles shortly and why that's the case. Next team, Kansas City Chiefs. Kelsey, need him back. This team looks rough without him. Sky Moore, I'm going to continue to trust. Kadarius Toney, I'm not. And that's because Sky Moore and MVS were the top two guys. I also am stashing Rashee Rice, already was, but he looked good, man. He looked good. So Rashee Rice, maybe it's time to get him a little more work. And then Pacheco played over McKinnon in all phases. We thought McKinnon would get more pass work. Not the case. So Isaiah Pacheco looking like the dude. McKinnon, we'll have to see. But we wanted it to be a split. Maybe that was more of Eric Bieniemy's idea, and now Bieniemy's gone. No split anymore. So that's it with the Chiefs. That game, of course, been talked to death. So let's forget that. Las Vegas Raiders. Devontae Adams, you're going to start him every week. He got 9 targets. Great news. Jacoby Myers came out of the ethos to clearly be a top 2 option. Hunter Renfrow, not sure if he got banged up. Chat, let me know did Hunter Renfrow get hurt? He only played, I know he's been dealing with injury, but only played 13 snaps compared to 47 for Myers, 52 for Adams. If this is just the way it's going to be, that would be nice, right? 2 wide receivers playing a ton. Nobody else matters. That's all we want for fantasy football. We want Tyreek Hill and we want Jalen Waddle and then nobody. That's the best thing in the world. So that's the situation there. Right now, Adams is the dude. Myers is an ad. He's got to be based on this usage, right? I mean, and they only played 59 snaps, which is below average. And Adams played 52. Myers played 47. Love it. What we don't love is, I mean, honestly, I kind of love it because now we don't have to even think about him or worry about him. But Austin Hooper played 31 snaps. Michael Mayer played 29. I don't have to tell you why that sucks. And, Devontae Adams ran 29 routes. Hooper ran 15. Mayer played 9. So just forget it. Forget Hooper, Michael Mayer. Stash Michael Mayer in Dynasty, but don't worry about those guys right now until one of them separates himself from the other. One guy that separated himself from everybody else, obviously Josh Jacobs. Awesome. Good thing they paid him that extra $1 million or whatever it took to get him to show up. But, man, he showed up big time. He was ready to play. 47 snaps, 7 for Abdullah, 5 for White. And probably the reason that there was no wide receiver 3 is the same reason there's no wide receiver 3 on the 49ers and the Dolphins, and why there hasn't been a wide receiver 3 on the Ravens in years is that Jakob Johnson, the fullback, played 27 snaps. He played half the game. So anytime you have a fullback playing even 25% of the snaps, take the wide receiver 3 and put him in the trash because he's just not going to play more than 75% of the snaps at most, and we just can't trust that in fantasy football. So makes our lives easier. Jakob Johnson, keep doing what you're doing, playing a ton of snaps and not touching the ball at all. That's good news for Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. So keep up the good work. And it's great news for Josh Jacobs. Having a fullback in there. Oh, yeah. So Los Angeles Chargers. This is another one. Be careful here. 80 snaps this week. 80. League average is like 65. And even the top teams are usually playing like 70 at most. That's just extra snaps. Whatever, like extra snaps, extra targets, extra touches that aren't going to be sustainable. Andrea, what's up in the chat? See you there. Good day. Hope you enjoyed your football day yesterday. We have another game tonight as a dessert, which is awesome. And it's going to be one of the best ones. Like Bills at Jets in New York City on 9/11 with Aaron Rodgers and the flyovers and everything, man. Hopefully there's going to be a great tribute. It's going to be a great game. So fired up for that, baby. Let's go. With the Los Angeles Chargers, Keenan Allen, locked in. He's awesome. Mike Williams played a massive snap share, looked good. He's going to be the guy he is, where you more of a best ball DFS type play, contested catches, the whole deal. Palmer and Quentin Johnston, they split the snaps. Palmer played 52. Johnston played 22. Johnston, obviously, he looked better. He managed 3 targets despite playing half the snaps. Hopefully that changes and they just say, smell you later to Josh Palmer. But for now, you can't start Quentin Johnston. Not until we get a commitment that he's going to be a full-time guy. So it's Keenan Allen, it's Mike Williams, Austin Eckler. Pay the man. Dude's awesome. Out there playing the guitar. Let's go, baby. So, yeah, Austin Eckler's a dude. Josh Kelly, clear backup. Elijah Dotson played 1 snap. Eckler played 41. Josh Kelly played 38, but you don't really need to think much about that considering Josh Kelly was getting more of kind of the junk work. Austin Eckler is just the man. But, yeah, Josh Kelly clearly played a decent amount, maybe worth a crazy deep league ad or whatever, but that's where we're at. I'm just not interested in these tight ends. I wasn't interested in Gerald Everett at all because to me, Keenan Allen's the top target and Mike Williams is second and Austin Eckler is obviously third. So, and now they have Quentin Johnston if one of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams gets hurt. So how many injuries away is Gerald Everett from being relevant? Like a million. And if Gerald Everett is somehow relevant and all these guys are relevant, it won't matter who has Gerald Everett because the guy with Justin Herbert will have won the league. So don't worry about Gerald Everett. You can drop him, do whatever. Start him if you have to, but I mean, I just don't care. Los Angeles Rams, 81 snaps. That is above average. So again, got to take a grain of salt some of this work here. But I mean, this got to be the biggest surprise of the week, right? Kyron Williams was the dude. I'm not sure if Cam Akers is dealing with something. We'll have to look into that. I'm doing a full snap count breakdown every week like usual. So my schedule this week is quick reactions today to all the games. And tomorrow, we're going to update all the weekly rankings for this week to make sure you got your waivers good to go. And I'm going to do my tight end article, the yin and yang tight end update, so that everybody can add tight ends before Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to do the full snap count breakdown and really dig in. So when I say, I don't know if something happened to Cam Akers, we're going to go back and look at that. Kevin Tompkins in the chat saying Cam Akers is dealing with something. It's called Kyron Williams. Obviously hilarious. But maybe. I mean, I always double check the injuries. I checked them real quick on my way through just to make sure, we didn't miss anything major, like a J.K. Dobbins type situation. But yeah, no, Kyron Williams looking like the dude. So there you go. The tight end, Tyler Higbee, played the whole game pretty much. 74 of 81 snaps. Only got 3 targets, but ran 33 routes. So, hey, if you started Tyler Higbee, you got what you asked for. This guy plays a ton, and he's just okay. The big story here, Puka Nacua. They rolled out Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, 15 targets. You can't bank on that, but it looks like Puka Nacua is just playing Cooper Kupp's role. The big concern is that if Cooper Kupp comes back and that's actually what they're doing, then Puka could just be shot out of a cannon into the sun. That's the problem you run into if they have direct backups for each role. Some teams have just one next man up that does everything, like a Zach Pascal. Van Jefferson is usually that guy where if somebody gets hurt, he can play all the roles, and he's a coach's son, and he's very flexible. But the concern here is that Puka Nacua doesn't just move over and become the wide receiver 2 when Cooper Kupp comes back. The concern here is that Van Jefferson is the split end, and Tutu Atwell is your field stretcher, and Puka Nacua is doing a Cooper Kupp impression. And when Cooper Kupp comes back, he just goes away completely. We saw that with Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch was playing Rondell Moore's role last year. When Rondell Moore came back, it wasn't Moore and Dortch. It was Dortch, go sit down. It's Moore's turn. So that's the one concern with Puka Nacua. But anytime a guy gets 15 targets, you have to add him. End of story. And we don't know what's going to go on with Cooper Kupp. So as long as Kupp is out, Nacua is definitely a DFS play. And obviously, after this week, a consideration for actual lineups. Again, we'll double check it. We'll look at the matchups. I'm going to try and go through these quick because we're somehow only have 10 minutes left. Been droning on. Miami Dolphins, just what you want to see. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, those are your guys. Everybody else kind of just mixed and matched. River Craycraft getting a ton of targets. I don't know what that was about, but only 26 snaps. So who cares there? Durham Smythe played 62 of 62 snaps, ran 33 routes, and got 7 targets. The problem is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are the top dogs. Waddle's been dealing with some injuries, but Durham Smythe, people are going to be excited to add him, and I personally am not. If we're doing the yin-yang tight end and you just completely missed on everything and you just needed the most boring possible player to start just to keep you above water, maybe start Durham Smythe, but I'm not adding a guy like that. He blocks on too many pass plays. The top targets are Waddle and Hill, so he has no shot to be a top 2 target on the team without an injury. If one of those guys gets hurt, we'll come back and we'll revisit him. Durham Smythe is in the Cade Otton bucket of like, if a wide receiver gets hurt or traded, then now we might consider him. But until then, don't do it. So just a warning there. Raheem Mostert, 46 snaps. Hell yeah, let's go. Mostert is the dude. We'll see what happens with Devon A-Chain and Jeff Wilson when they get back. But until then, Mostert, get him in your lineups. Alec Ingold did his fullback thing, which means, Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, don't worry about him. Alec Ingold played 29 of 62 snaps. That's half the game. That means no third wide receiver is going to come out of the blue and just play a ton of snaps. And Toronto Dave, you got it right in the chat. Raheem must start, baby. Must start. Get him in there. Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, the man. KJ Osborne played the second most snaps, 58 of 64. After the way Jordan Addison looked, though, on that big touchdown, I hope that flips sooner rather than later. I know Kevin Tompkins, Britt Flynn John and Pemba, Howard Bender. We've been in on Addison, and this is what happens is guy comes out and has 6 targets on only a 50% snap share, and KJ Osborne comes out and he's just KJ Osborne. As soon as that flips, that's when it's wheels up for Addison. So what we saw from Addison is only a small part of what we could see. TJ Hawkinson was Hawkinson, man. 48 snaps, 8 targets, 36 routes run. He ran 36 routes run to 44 for Osborne and 47 for Jefferson. That's okay. But, 8 targets, like, what more can you ask for in this world? Josh Oliver and Johnny Munt were the blocking tight ends. Very cool. Just more blocking they do, the more snaps those guys play. It's, CJ Ham, Josh Oliver, those guys went out and they combined for 52 snaps and they had 0 targets. That's so good for fantasy football. We love that. We want more guys on the field taking up those roles and not touching the football, because then it consolidates the targets among the guys we want to get the football. Ideally, what this offense would be for fantasy football is you have Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver 1, Jordan Addison as wide receiver 2, TJ Hawkinson is a full-time tight end, Alexander Madison is a full-time running back, and then that third role that a lot of teams use, a Tyler Boyd or a third wide receiver, that's just Josh Oliver and CJ Ham playing a bunch of meaningless snaps and consolidating those targets. So that is an ideal world for me, and that's what I want to see, and kind of got to look at some of it. So I like that. Alexander Madison, clearly the dude. 47 snaps to 11 for Ty Chandler. I know there was some Ty Chandler hope. Forget about it. New England Patriots played 80 snaps. So Kendrick Bourne, 73 snaps, 11 targets. Here's the thing. They're not going to play 80 snaps every week. So you got to discount it a little bit. I know it was fun. I know, scoring 2 touchdowns, making big plays, even though he also had the pick. Mac Jones actually threw 3 touchdown passes to Kendrick Bourne. 2 were caught by Kendrick Bourne. 1 was caught by Darius Slay going the other way. So Kendrick Bourne, though, they liked him a lot. It was Patricia that didn't. So Bourne looking pretty good. Juju's the next man that I want there. You can't go after Demario Douglas or Kayshon Boutte, those guys, because again, 77 targets for Demario Douglas in a game with 80 snaps. In a game with 50 snaps, not as good. And good point, Britt. Devontae Parker's absence does matter. Parker's going to be a guy on the outside. So, you're going to have to take away from some of that. I still think Juju is still the priority guy for me, but I mean, think of it this way. This is how crazy it was. Juju ran 27 routes. Kendrick Bourne ran 54. So Juju, dealing with the knee situation, he's more of a stash right now. Mike Gesicki also dealing with a shoulder situation. He only played 33 snaps. Hunter Henry, Hen Dog getting in the hen house once again, right? 63 snaps for him, 42 routes run, only blocked on 1 pass play, 6 targets. I got to move Hunter Henry above Mike Gesicki for the time being. Mike Gesicki, I don't know why he would sign somewhere that wasn't going to use him a ton, because he was complaining last year, but ouch. Ramondre Stevenson, 58 snaps to 28 for Zeke. Zeke was involved in the pass game, but it's still Mondre's team, clearly. Next team, Saints. Chris Olave, 51 snaps. Michael Thomas, 51 snaps. Those are your top 2 guys, just like we had hoped. Rashid Shaheed came in and was a field stretcher and looked good. I just don't think there's a world where you just flip it and now Michael Thomas is coming out of the game and Shaheed is playing the full snap share, but maybe. I mean, keep your eye on that. For now, Chris Olave and Michael Thomas looking pretty solid for starts, and then Shaheed is a guy like DFS or best ball. He gave you exactly what you hoped, like explosive plays. So maybe they will switch that up at some point. But right now, Michael Thomas played almost double the snaps of Rashid Shaheed. He's just a bigger wide receiver. I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. Juwan Johnson, 50 snaps. Foster Moreau, 32. Juwan Johnson, clearly your best bet at tight end. Taysom Hill did nothing, which was awesome. That there are 2 things I care most about in football. If I had to rank the top 3, 1, the Patriots win. 2, Taysom Hill does nothing. 3, I win my fantasy leagues. Those are the 3 things I care about most. And Taysom Hill, more important than me winning my fantasy leagues. He drives me nuts. The constant, do I start Taysom Hill questions? The answer to every single one this week was no. And that proved to be right. Guess what? Next week, he might come out and score 3 touchdowns. And it's still not a good idea to start a guy. If you're just doing touchdown coin flips, use your brain. Like, let's Let's chase targets. Let's not chase random carries. Jamal Williams was the dude, 49 carries. We'll have to see if Kendre Miller is good to go. But, that is what it is. The Giants, complete wash. Man, that was disgusting to watch. Just absolutely brutal. Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell led the team. Isaiah Hodges was out there for 42 snaps. Just hard to trust any of those guys. The whole game makes me want to stash Wan'Dale Robinson. Darren Waller clearly still dealing with some issues. Only played 38 snaps. Daniel Bellinger played 44. Even if Waller ran more routes, Waller got 5 targets, but we need him fully healthy. I don't know why they left Daniel Jones out there for so long, but that was embarrassing, and they should feel bad about it as an organization. Saquon Barkley looked awesome. Jets are playing tonight. We got to rapid fire these other ones. Eagles, exactly what we thought it would be. Devonta Smith and AJ Brown out there every snap. Kenneth Gainwell looking like a bell cow back. Let's go. I saw someone in the chat asking about trading for DeAndre Swift. Don't do that. Kenneth Gainwell is the man. And Dallas Goedert is the thing is, I warned you guys that Kyle Duggar is a tight end killer. So Dallas Goedert, don't bench him next week. He's not playing Kyle Duggar next week, and you can start him in DFS, do whatever. Just know that he's not a big end zone threat, and when he plays a really good linebackers or safeties, they can take him out of the game. Steelers, it was Allen Robinson, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson got banged up, so he left the game. It's typically going to be Deontay at Robinson and Pickens, but we'll have to monitor Deontay. Pat Freiermuth also got banged up. Just awful for us. But I mean, if those guys are out, it's George Pickens and Allen Robinson. Those are the guys. Najee Harris, 33 snaps, 25 for Jalen Warren. Warren looked pretty bad, but still, he got more targets than Najee. So terrible news for both guys. 49ers, it was Debo and Ayuk as the top guys. Ayuk obviously looked amazing, but Debo, 6 targets, 2 carries. That's what Debo does, right? So there are going to be some weeks where he scores a touchdown and then rushes for a touchdown. And then there's going to be some weeks like this where it's Ayuk. There are going to be some weeks where it's Kittle. That's the way this team is. Kittle looked like himself. He looked healthy. Christian McCaffrey, obviously amazing. Kyle Juszczyk played 42 of 68 snaps. So crazy there. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, top 2 guys. Jackson Smith-Njigba, part-time player, as we expected even before the injury. He's in that Tyler Boyd role, so we'll have to see how that goes. Jake Bobo, I know we were excited, didn't really play much. Kenneth Walker, even with the injury, 32 snaps, which is more than DJ Dallas and Zach Charbonnet combined. You can't start Charbonnet or Dallas. All you can start is Kenneth Walker. Buccaneers, you had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, 58 and 57 snaps. Very cool. Trey Palmer scored the touchdown, but he only played 23 snaps. Devin Tompkins, all these guys, don't worry about them. It's Evans, it's Godwin. Cade Otton played 66 snaps, only got 3 targets. Again, he is a handcuff. He's not even a handcuff plus. Like Goddard is a handcuff plus where you can start him, and if a wide receiver gets hurt, it's wheels up. With Cade Otton, he's a pure handcuff. You need a wide receiver out, and then he's the guy. Toronto Dave, see you with the corn in the chat, dude. Trey Palmer, dude. Shout out to the HH house over there. But yeah, Rashad White, 54 snaps. Sean Tucker, 10. Chase Edmonds, 8. I guess I don't have to say anything. That ends that whole Sean Tucker discussion. Tennessee Titans, 57 snaps for Treylon Burks. Let's go. He's up and running. DeAndre Hopkins played 49, but got 12 targets. Hopkins, obviously, in the lineup every week. Burks is going to be the dude over Nick Westbrook or Akine, so don't chase the Akine situation there. And then Chigakonkwo, 52 snaps, which is good. Ran 30 routes, which is good. Didn't really do a whole lot there. So away she goes. Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears split. Not great, but Henry looked awesome. Last team, Washington Commanders. McLaurin's fine. Dotson's fine. Logan Thomas looked great. Like he's a guy that I'm potentially adding for sure in that offense. And then, Brian Robinson got the carries. Antonio Gibson played the pass snaps just as we expected. Everyone stay tuned. Britt Flynn coming up next with Britt's Blitz. I got to jump. Ran a little late. Catch y'all guys. Thanks for joining.